What's up, guys? Here with another video, and in this video I'll be talking about the Thunder versus the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. So finally, these playoffs has ended, right? Now the officially the semi-conference finals on both sides just ended, right? So we have 4 teams remaining left. So we have the Thunder, we have the Timberwolves, we have the Pacers, we have the Knicks, right? So obviously let's just go over before I make those predictions, right? A quick recap, right? So that series just ended just on Sunday, which is today, right? Because in 2 more days the Thunder it's gonna play again, and I feel like they're gonna be exhausted. But yeah, before I get into that series, so look like I kind of knew like the Nuggets are gonna put up a much better fight comparing to the Memphis Grizzlies series. Yeah, that series is like boring, but this one's like much more entertaining, right? That's also another coin flip series, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Nuggets advance, but then at the same time Nuggets they just did a lot of stupid things that just shut their chances of winning a championship, right? So I knew that the Denver or the Clippers, they're never gonna win a championship, right? And they're both a pretender, right? And I know they're not gonna go far in the playoff. I just kind of knew it, right? Yeah, and just in my opinion, I think the Nuggets still look better than the Thunders. I'm like, why did the Thunders eliminate the Nuggets in the first place, right? If you say, Nuggets better than Thunder. Obviously, Nuggets don't have a head coach, right? I mean, this team is just so dumb, fire the head coach and fire the GM for I don't know, probably because of Nikola Jokic or something. Players, right? This is a weird NBA era, where players don't be hold accountables, right? They don't hold players accountable, right? They just let players do whatever they want, right? And I feel like the NBA needs to hold these players accountable, right? And that's the real problem. And this is a real problem. This is a lot of NBA fans are pointing out, right? I mean, this is just the truth, right? So, yeah, have Denver just kept their key players in the past and have kept their head coach and just kept everything, just kept their championship court, they would have beat the Thunder, honestly, right? And they should have beat the Thunder, right? I'm not surprised, and I'm happy for the Thunder to eliminate the Denver Nuggets, right? Because, that's a team that I couldn't stand against, right? Yeah, I get Denver don't deserve, to be, even this far. And they barely beat the choking Clippers, right? That just tells you a lot, right? I remember Game 7, Denver seemed to be a very clutch team, and yeah, they just blew out the Clippers, right? The way the Thunder ended the Nuggets is exactly what the Nuggets did to the Clippers in Game 7. This is okay, Game 7 again. You think the Nuggets are going to win? I didn't think that's going to happen, right? It totally happened the opposite. This playoff has been intriguing, been very weird with so many blowouts, man. I'm like, yeah, we used to have way more overtime than 30-point blowouts, right? I watched Sport Fitness Rant, right? He said that they're way too. Yeah, look at the score; it's so goddamn lopsided, right? The Nuggets and the Thunder, they were head to head, right? And the Nuggets was even up double digit for some quite a while, and then the first quarter the Nuggets won the lead, and then they lost by 40 points. This 2025 is getting weirder and weirder, man. I'm like, you never know what's gonna happen with this team, right? Next day, team blow out this team. Next day, the team get blow out. They play against the same matchup, and they have equal amount of talent. This makes no sense, man. You're not playing against a G League team. You're not playing against Memphis Grizzlies. You're not playing against the AC team or the 10 team. I'm like, what's going on here, man? I'm like, seriously, man. Just a lot of teams just quit in general and just bunch of jack up threes. This is why I cannot watch the NBA, because it's full of garbage, man. Right? So anyway, that series is important because Shea should win the MVP, right? And not Nikola Jokic, right? Yes, I get, NBA has race problem. Like, they just, if Nikola Jokic, if the Nuggets beat the Thunder, then, then the MVP should go to Nikola Jokic. But still, I still would disagree with that because, Nikola Jokic has been getting a lot of help, right, from his team, right? I feel like Nikola Jokic leadership is also weak too, right? Yeah, I just overheard, Nikola Jokic's fan base. They keep crapping all over his teammates, and just saying, Nikola Jokic is, the answer to everything, right? Nikola Jokic cannot carry the Nuggets, right? You have to keep it real here, man. SGA is better than Nikola Jokic, right? He totally shut this guy down, right? So that's exactly what happened, right? So how did it become 7 games series here? So obviously the Thunder blew out the Nuggets like 2 times already, right? 2 times, and Thunder's clearly has to be a better team than the Nuggets. Has to be, because Nuggets gets blown out like 3 times in the playoffs, right? This is insane. This is why the Nuggets don't deserve. I'm like, you look at the team's resume, right? And you see that this team is blown like multiple times in the playoff, and that has not a recipe to win a championship, right? There are good teams, but no great teams, right? Teams supposed to not like get blown out many times in the playoff like this, and somehow win the championship. That is not gonna work that way, man. It's not gonna work, right? Has the Thunder get blown out? Thunder has not get blown out yet, in the playoffs, right? So let me go over with, and then we go to the Timberwolves, versus the Warrior, right? So, yeah, even though, the Nuggets, people make excuses, right? This is what type of era we live in. So soft, The Nuggets, say that, oh, we lost this because, Eric Gordon got injured, right? I'm so happy Eric Gordon played through injury. That's what most professional players, you get paid millions of dollars to do these type of job, right? Play through injuries, right? You go out there, show up for the fans, and play through injury, right? A lot of players just quit because they get injured, right? Yeah, I didn't know, back in the old day, I didn't know that players, has to go through injury, right? They just don't tell you they're injured, but they just play through it, right? Yeah, I feel bad for Aaron Gordon. I just wish every team, 100%, right? Not partial injury, not injuries, right? Injuries been real, but even if Aaron Gordon is not injured, man, it still wouldn't make a difference, right? Just like, if Jason Tatum, played in Game 6, the Knicks would have still handily beat the Celtics, right? Handily. So, yeah, what do I have to say about the Timberwolves versus the Golden State Warriors? I don't have much to say about it. It's not really that much because they don't have Curry, right? So I knew that, without their best player, I know that the team's winning percentage is like, yeah, they're technically, their season just ended like that, right? And Jimmy Butler got exposed. He's probably getting old now, His leadership is weak. This is why, he left the Miami Heat, right? This is why Pat Riley, just let him go, right? Yeah, Jimmy Butler may have caused the chemistry problem, but, the Warriors really need Curry for everything, right? I remember that there's a time, where Curry gets injured and all stuff, and I knew that the Warrior season just, like, literally ended. This is why they missed the 2020 playoff. It's because, Curry went down. That's the reason. I'm like, they could lose Kevin Durant, they'll still be fine, right? What the Warriors need to do, they need to get rid of that Draymond Green, man. He causes so much championship and chemistry problem, right? I know Draymond is nothing without Stephen Curry, right? And I know that people hate the Golden State Warriors mainly because of Draymond Green, right? Yeah, Draymond Green, you can blame Draymond Green. It's the biggest reason why, the Warriors are in a mess right now, right? So, yeah, just Draymond Green just gets out of control, man. Right? He just does nothing but cause problem for the Warriors. I don't know why the Warriors keep him. What for, right? So, yeah, it's just simple, That series now end up being boring because, now you got the Timberwolves winning 4 straight games, The only reason why Warriors won the first game is because Curry was in it. And I knew that Curry's out of the series, then I knew that they had no chance, right? Now, if Jimmy Butler's out, then it does hurt the Warrior chance, but mainly they just need everyone healthy. They need Curry, right? If Curry was in that series, I feel like the Warriors should have, take down the Timberwolves, right? So, yeah. And now, we got the Thunders, versus the Timberwolves series. This is going to be a quick one, man. This is obvious. I got everybody's going to pick the Thunders versus Timberwolves, right? And there's no explanation, right? The Timberwolves, they're not really battle tested, right? I mean, whoever wins the, in the playoff, whoever wins, the tougher matchup, will obviously advance, right? And will obviously most likely going to win. And that's just the thing, right? Whoever takes the tougher path, right? The Thunders, I know that both Thunders and the Timberwolves had easy pass, but Thunder, let's talk about all their opponents, right? Thunder, they faced against the Grizzlies. Grizzlies had no chance, so that technically doesn't count, right? And they go against the Nuggets, Nuggets are much tougher than the Grizzlies, man, right? And they gave them a fight for their life. So forcing the Nuggets to go to Game 7, even though they're inexperienced enough. I think if the Thunders was, in the playoff for like at least 1 or 2 more years, they would have eliminated the Nuggets a lot faster. It would not have gone to Game 7. So, yeah, the Thunders are overrated? I don't think so, man. Yeah, they are overrated because they face against, a team, that does have a head coach, that have chemistry problem. Now, I feel like the Nuggets going to have to break up, right? So, another, pretender, Denver Nuggets, right? Yeah, and who did the Nuggets face? The Clippers, right? So, yeah, the West is not as tough as compared, to Eastern Conference, right? I mean, whoever comes out of the West, they're still not going to win the championship because the East is way more battle-tested than the West, right? Timberwolves, they face against like nobody, right? Well, Thunder and Timberwolves, they face against nobody, but the Thunder, they face the toughest opponent will be the Denver Nuggets, right? Like whoever wins out of that series is gonna go to the finals to face whoever is the winner of the East, right? The winner of the Knicks versus the Pacers, right? Now this gets very interesting, of who will come to the final because now it has 4 teams, right? The Thunder, you get the Thunder win the championship. You might have the Timberwolves. I don't trust really tough as Timberwolves, right? You got Knicks, the Pacers, so 25% chance, but obviously, that it's easy, Timberwolves aren't going nowhere, Yeah, it's Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert, right? Rudy Gobert is a really fraudulent defensive player of the year, right? I cannot trust the team with a Rudy Gobert. You saw what the Dallas Mavericks did last year, right? My Thunders, they might. This series might end a lot faster than the 7th game. That's for sure, right? The Thunder and Timberwolves series is not gonna go to Game 7 unless a funny injury happen, right? Unless something funny happens, like somebody get injured, like Shea get injured and all that stuff. But for God, the injuries needs to stop happening, man, right? And stop changing the playoff outcome, right? So, yeah. Have injuries have not been played a role, it would have been, Thunder versus the Warriors, right? I still got the Thunder over the Warrior, even though the Warrior beat the Timberwolves, right? Timberwolves, they just beat like nobody, right? They beat no one. So, the Timberwolves, they have, they face against the Lakers, right? Obviously, LeBron James, 40 years old. He's too old, and he just needs to retire, right? Okay, the Lakers are technically, they're the biggest pretender of all time, right? Lakers just beat all the play team, and this is how they got to the 3rd seed, and they got their one lucky win, and boom, Timberwolves should have ended the Lakers. Timberwolves should have no problem ending the Lakers, right? I mean, all the size stuff, right? I guess Timberwolves has plenty of size. They have Anthony Edwards, right? But Thunder, they are young and inexperienced, right? So they should get I would be surprised if the Timberwolves actually knocks off the Thunder, right? That would be surprising, right? So, Yeah, it's Shais Gilgeous Alexander versus Anthony Edwards, right? SGA is better than it's better than Anthony Edwards, so that's why I'm gonna have to go with Thunders, right? How many games? Maybe 6 games to be generous, right? It could be 5, it could be 6. I'm not exactly sure, but I will go with I say no more than 6 games, right? Yeah, it's crazy to think about it, man. Like the Thunder and Timberwolves, face against each other, right? Let's see who the Thunder had. They had like Lou Dort, they have SGA, and they have like Alex Caruso. They have like really, really deep roster, right? And the Timberwolves, I feel like they're gonna do some shenanigans again, Again, playing just messing around, and just shooting themselves out of the game, right? That will give the Thunder a chance, to run them off the court. So yeah, whoever plays better defense, right? But the Timberwolves and the Thunder, their defense is great, but I think the Thunder just have a little better offense than the Timberwolves, right? The Timberwolves wouldn't be as tough as comparing to Denver Nuggets, right? But then definitely they're not the Memphis Grizzlies again, right? So to me, it's Thunder all the way, right? They feel like they're like the new Golden State Warrior, well, except they're like the degraded, the 2015 Golden State Warrior, right? They're like more like 2013 or 2014, Golden State Warrior, right? Relatively new, to the playoff, right? And if they get to the final, they're probably going to get beaten by the Pacers or the Knicks, right? Probably. So cannot speak too far ahead by now. So it just depends, what's going to happen, right? But yeah, now, this is a quick recap, like why I like these teams to be in, still, in the third rounds in the playoff. Right now, you have all the young teams, right? All the young team, they're fast and energetic, right? I'm like, to order to win championship, not only have good leadership, but you just need good coach. You need, really young players, right? It's all the young people, right? No more old people, right? LeBron's too old, he's not going to win any more championship, right? So, yeah, the league should, talk about, younger generation, right? The young ones, right? So, yeah, I feel like the Thunders have a really strong future, and I kind of knew it, right? But if they play in the old era, they wouldn't last this long. They probably would have been first or second round exit again, right? So I'm very happy for the Thunders they gone this far. So yeah, after just entering in the playoff just last year, right? So I think there's nothing else much to say, right? So yeah, just SGA's just been balling out, right? SGA, Shais Gilgeous Alexander. So yeah, I really love the Thunder's core, right? I told you like they're gonna be a dangerous team, right? It's just insane, That seems to me, yeah, I get, like this team has been, over, accomplished, right? Just due, to some, lack of competition in the era, right? It has to be because, blowout's been happening left and right, right? So, yeah, Timberwolves has, 2 ways of being the Thunder. They either Thunder gets accidentally injured or, Anthony Edwards just have to go like MJ mode, man. And I don't see that happening, right? Yeah, I don't like Anthony Edwards, attitude, he talks too much, he yaps too much, right? Yeah, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving just, smacked these Timberwolves last year, right? It's going to be the same thing again, right? If the Timberwolves wasn't that dumb, like, they would have overcome the Thunder, right? If they have kept Karl Anthony Towns, and built, a better chemistry around there and traded that fraudulent Rudy Gobert, right? that had really, that really doesn't do much on defense, right? Really, man. And get a real size, right? And I feel like they would have dominated the Thunders, but too bad I got Thunders, against the Timberwolves. So, and it is what it is,